Welcome everybody to another edition of TEW 2020, as it's time for the continuation of our WCW 2001 series, and yes, it's pay-per-view time for Fall Brawl, but before we do that, I'm just going to go over the card, basically, because again, it's been a couple months since there's been a show, so just want to remind people of where we are, and the best way to do that is, of course, to go over the pay-per-view lineup. So, starting from the top, our main event of the evening is a four-way match to determine the number one contender, and who will get the title shot at Halloween Havoc, and it's going to be Eddy Guerrero versus Kanyon versus Rob Van Dam versus Scott Steiner. Remember, Kanyon and RVD basically fought to a draw at Clash of the Champions. Scott Steiner won the gauntlet for the gold battle royal to earn a shot, and Eddy Guerrero was given the shot basically because he's, Eddy Guerrero and he just showed up. So again, winner of this four corners match will go to Halloween Havoc to take on the WCW World Champion Vampiro. And next up is the other big main event is going to be the Deadpool of Vampiro, Mesias, Morningstar, and of course Lestat, taking on the babyface team of Booker T, Bill Goldberg, and Jason Jett and Paul London. And this is basically been one of our big feuds for the whole basically since the beginning of the year. As the Deadpool have been mainly feuding with Goldberg and Booker T, but Jett and London have been teaming up. First, Jason Jett teamed with Goldberg during the summer, and also Paul London is now a team with Jason Jett, and they showed up as basically the other baby faces to take on the heels, and also to be blunt, so that the top so the babyface team isn't overloaded with top guys. But yeah, this will be a War Games match, so fun times. The next biggest match after that is probably, let's see here, is our U.S. title match as Sting takes on Shane Helms. Of course, Shane Helms has been the longtime U.S. champion, only losing it briefly to Jeff Hardy on his debut. And, this is another chance for him to kill a legend once and for all, taking on Sting. Of course, Sting has been feuding, since he's helped out Ray Jr. in his feud with Helms' legacy. Of course, he's been the target of Shane Helms. So we'll see if Sting adds another title to his long, illustrious career, or if Shane Helms has a chance to kill another legend. And, of course, along with that feud is Rey Mysterio Jr. versus Gigantes. It's Ray Jr. versus the big guy. What else can I say? The other big match, as far as title matches go, is Air Raid defending the World Tag Titles against Jeff Jarrett and Shane Douglas. Basically Jarrett and Douglas, want to get the Horsemen back on track, and the quickest way to do that is win back the tag titles. So here we go. They did win a match, but I forget off the top of my head how exactly they did. But, they won a match. Then after that, we've got our big triple threat match for the WCW World Women's Championship, as Angel Foxx will defend against Lexi James and Gail Kim. Basically, both Lexi and Gail want a title shot. Angel, being a good virtuous babyface, will take on both of them. And then our final title match of the evening is Jeff Hardy versus Jamie Knoble. This was set up because Jeff Hardy managed to get a pinfall victory during a big six-man match, and there you go. That's all he set up you need for a Cruiserweight title match. For non-title matches, we've got Shawn Hill versus Billy Kidman. Billy Kidman, snuck up and knocked O'Hare out of the Golden Gauntlet Battle Royal, and now they've been fighting. Or was it the other way around? I go watch my video. Anyway, one of them knocked the other one, and now they've been fighting, and there we go. Beyond that, we've got the clash between Team Canada, as both Lance Storm and Mike Awesome, both think, they were the stronger link in Team Canada, and after a few big losses, now they're fighting. And finally, we've got Alex Wright versus Ric Flair. Alex Wright got a big win over Ric Flair at the last big show, and now Ric Flair wants to, prove he's still the dirtiest player in the game, one of the best wrestlers in World Championship Wrestling, by taking on Alex Wright and defeating him in a 2 out of 3 falls match. So there you go, lots of big matches, and I'll be back in just a second with the actual event, live from Denver, Colorado. So see you in just a second. And now, welcome everybody to one of the big events of the year, WCW Fall Brawl, live from Denver, Colorado, where we've got basically a sellout crowd of 18,000 people here, as we start out with our pre-show match, with in an abysmal pre-show match, Amber O'Neil defeats Beth Phoenix, Celine Cartier, and Jordan Cole in 10:03 when Amber O'Neil submitted Celine Cartier. This gets a 53. Amber O'Neil gets a 52, Beth Phoenix gets a 45, Celine Cartier gets a 49, Jordan Cole gets a 48. This is basically just a thing to get some women some in-ring time, especially since they don't have any additional match on the pay-per-view, and basically, to be blunt, nobody of any consequence on the male side needs for the pay-per-view paycheck and the pay-per-view happiness boost. But anyway, this gets a 53. Now we're off to the actual opening video. Ah, shit. Right. I forgot. Okay. Should've... Wow, this is the first time in a while I've made this mistake. That's actually shocking. Anyway, opening video gets a 58. Should have been rated on star quality or charisma or entertainment or something, but I totally blanked it and rated it on not that. But anyway, moving on to our opening match, as it's Sean O'Haire versus Billy Kidman. As in an exceptional match, Sean O'Haire defeated Billy Kidman in 15-25 with pinfall the Widowmaker. So yeah, this is a total back and forth match. Billy Kidman uses his cheating and his high flying. He's still a bit of a high flyer. He's getting older and he's a heel, but he can still hit a missile drop kick. Some sort of baseball slide, sending O'Haire into the ringside area. But O'Haire fights back. He's powerful. He hits big strikes. And at the end, he pushes out the Kid Crusher, hits a few big moves, and then it's time for the Widowmaker. There's nothing, April can do on the outside. Just 1, 2, 3. Sean O'Haire wins another big match. Sean O'Haire gets a 91. Billy Kidman gets a 94. O'Haire and Kidman have great chemistry, which is interesting for the future. This gets an 82. So let's see here. What was the downside? Lack of psychology, stamina, and lack of heat. Okay, so yeah. But still, 82 is really good. And then O'Haire celebrating gets a 68. Next up, and then in a bout that had a good wrestling and decent from the crowd, Jeff Hardy defeated Jamie Noble in 11-10 when Jamie Noble was disqualified when, well, it says a name here, but we'll just say a large African-American gentleman dressed up like a bodyguard runs in and just, Jeff Hardy hits this wonton and he's going for the pin. A large, like I said, big guy comes in. And he just absolutely destroys Jeff Hardy with a kick to the face. Referee calls for the bell, and he just continues the beatdown. But anyways, the match itself gets an 81. Jeff Hardy gets an 82. Jamie Noble gets a 68. And yeah, so Jamie Noble's new bodyguard, who in real life is Drew Onyx, just continues the beatdown and just hits a big choke slammer powerbomb on Hardy. And, looks like Noble has some backup. This gets a 57. Solid stuff. They move on to our next match, which is in a decent match. Mike Awesome defeats Lance Storm in 11:09 by pinfall with an Awesome Bomb. This gets a 58. Storm gets a 68. Awesome gets a 66. And this is again back and forth match, but both guys cheat, and more importantly, this doesn't go crazy to the outside. No chairs, no tables, just back and forth in ring action. Then Awesome's a little better, and he gets the big pinfall victory over Storm with the Awesome Bomb right in the middle of the ring. 1, 2, 3. And again, let's see here. I'm going to guess lack of associate storyline. And face heel combination. But anyway, after the match, Awesome Storm just continue to fight. Storm hits a big drop kick and sends Awesome out of the ring, then hits the big plancha on Storm in the ringside area before WCW officials get involved and break him apart. This gets to 73. As we move on to our next match, which I believe is Rey Mysterio Jr. versus Gigantes. And yeah, and about that good wrestling and decent reaction from the crowd, Rey Mysterio Jr. defeats Gigantes in 907 by pinfall springboard Hurricanrana. This gets an 81. We'll speak of Rey Jr.'s awesome. Rey Jr. gets an 86. Gigantes gets a 59. And yeah, this is just a typical big man match. Gigantes gets big spots in. Rey Jr. gets a reversal at the end, and then is able to springboard Hurricanrana off this, do the springboard and get the huge victory over the big man. And then Rey Jr. celebrating gets a 69. Nice. So then we move on to our yikes, wow. Okay. And they both had great heat and good wrestling. Ric Flair defeats Alex Wright in 13:51 with the final fall happening by an underhand attack. So this has 2 straight falls, but we all know it's a 2 out of 3 falls match. It's going 3 falls. So, Wright, tries to wrestle, but Flair, cheats. Flair fights back. This is still 2003 Ric Flair, not quite totally decrepit Ric Flair. But at the end of the day, Flair is able to get a sort of, Wright goes for a big suplex. Flair comes out of it, hits a sunset flip, holds on to the tights, and gets the first pinfall victory. Wright fights back, hits his big finisher, and the finisher, hits his finisher, then gets the win to tie things up. They fight for a few more minutes. Flair even locks in the figure 4, but Wright reverses it, and it looks like Wright's going to submission. Flair barely gets into the ropes. As they sort of get up, Flair does poke the eye, low blow, small package, pinfall victory. He's still the dirtiest player in the game. 85, which is really good. Wright gets a 79, Flair gets a 76. Let's see here. Why did this... Okay, hot crowd. Okay, wow. This was really freaking good. And then, of course, Flair celebrating gets a 71. Next up, Yeah, so next up we've got our three-way match for the women's title. As Belt had terrible wrestling, which is mean, and knocks in crowd heat. Gail Kim defeats Lexi James and Angel Foxx in 10:34 when Gail Kim pinned Lexi James. Gail Kim wins the WCW Women's World title. So what happens here is, back and forth match, typical three-way stuff. Women, the heels can't agree on who actually gets the pinfall victory, so they start fighting. In the end, it's a whole big mess. But Angel Foxx has actually hit the Angel Snap when Kim runs in, tosses Angel Foxx out of the ring. Kim goes to the top rope, hits the defeat, and then it's another big move and gets the pinfall victory to win the world title without ever actually pinning Foxx. Big win for Kim as she finally wins the women's world title. Lexi gets a 56, Gail Kim gets a 62, and Angel Foxx gets a 53. And then Gail Kim celebrating gets a 63. Good stuff. Next up, we have a freaking awesome match. As in a bout that is superb wrestling and good heat, Air Ray defeats Jeff Jarrett and Shane Douglas in 2030 when AJ Styles pins Jeff Jarrett with a Styles Clash. So this is just a perfected Southern style tag match. Like AJ and Air Ray play the baby faces. Jarrett and Douglas, do their hero stick up to 1,000,000. Lots of heat, hot tag, comeback, more heat, hot tag, heat. But in the end, AJ runs wild and with the huge pinfall victory over Jeff Jarrett with the Styles Clash as Air Ray defend their tag titles. Air Paris gets a 78, AJ gets an 87, Shane Douglas gets an 86, Jeff Jarrett gets a friggin' 90. Again, I don't know. He might actually get the main event push and he might actually deserve it. That's kind of insane to me. But regardless, huge win, 92, one of our better matches ever. And then Air Raid celebrating gets a 72. So then we're moving on to our match that's, third from the top. That probably should have been third from the top, this. But what can you do? As about that had great heat and good wrestling. Shane Helms defeated Sting in 12:04 by pinfall. It says that we using arms for leverage, but this was a title, this was a swap with the US title. So sometimes, I've said before, you need the heel to get a clean win to sort of mark himself as, evil. This is not one of those times. Helms is an asshole, and yes, he's gotten clean ones before, but this is still Sting. So, Sting is the valiant babyface, even though he's aging. So, Sting fights back, but Helms is a evil, corrupt, cheating heel, whalps Sting with US title, and gets the victory. Makes another defense of his US title. This gets an 88. Sting gets a 75. Helms gets an 84. And they actually have pretty good chemistry, which is interesting for the future. Regardless, a huge win for Helms. And then Helms celebrating afterwards gets a 72. Okay, it's now War Games time, as the first member of Team WCW comes out, and it's Paul London. It's 57, this is just, basically him running out to the ring. And now it's time for the first member of the Deadpool, and it is Morningstar. He gets a 73. So, they have their 5-minute opening segment. It's basically a spot fest inside the cage, inside the War Games cage, drop kicks, suplexes, big high spots. Then, sort of the bell rings, or I guess the buzzer goes off, and the second member, the Deadpool, comes out, and it is, of course, Lestat. So, 2-on-1, London fights back, but still 2-on-1. Lestat gets his, big spots in, sort of like, suplex, goes for the impaler, but London barely fights out. Then the buzzer hits, and who comes out? But, of course, Jason Jett. So now they fight, double team tactics. They're an actual team. Morningstar and Lestat really isn't, so, they're feeling hot. But then after their 2-minute segment, the buzzer rings, and oh Christ, it's Mesias. Mesias comes in and he just runs over both of the smaller wrestlers. And from here it's just 2 minutes of pure absolute destruction. Choke slam, just a throw into the corner, big boot, press into the top of the cage, just, wrecking, just absolute destruction. And it looks like Mesias is about to hit him with the Cruiserweight Powerbomb, and the buzzer hits, and bum, 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 bum. It's Goldberg. Goldberg comes out, and it's an immediate, fight to the death between Goldberg and Mesias, as it just trade bombs in the middle of the ring. Basically, everybody else sort of recovers. Heels are a little less damaged. They go over, after Jett and London. But Goldberg's able to hit a huge spear on Mesias, then he hits a huge spear on Lestat, then he looks like he's about to go for the jackhammer on Morningstar, when the buzzer hits again, and this time it's Vampiro, finish out Team Deadpool, and they run out, Vampiro runs out, the world champion runs out, and he begins the assault on Goldberg, and, from there, it's basically, Jett and London are still sort of in tatters, near the, basically on the ring apron, and from there it's just, an all-out, 4-on-1 assault on Goldberg, but Goldberg fights back valiantly because he's our top. I mean, he's still basically kind of our top babyface, and he's fighting back for 2 minutes. But it's still Goldberg versus 4. So it looks like Vampiro's is about to hit the coup de grace when the buzzer rings, and out comes Booker and Absolute House of Fire. But it's still Goldberg versus 4 guys, but slowly Jett and London come back. They hit their high spots, and at this point, So at this point, it's about 10 more minutes of just hot and heavy action. Both guys fighting, both teams fighting back. Everybody getting their big spots in. Mesias hitting a huge choke slam on Goldberg, to put him over, but immediately then getting nailed from a sidekick by Booker. Vampiro goes for the nail in the coffin, but Booker slides out of it. He fights back. Morningstar goes after him, and it's just a huge fight. But in the end, what basically happens is Goldberg wipes out Lestat with a spear. Jett and London are able to basically keep Vampiro occupied with high-flying attacks. Then, it's Mesias and Morningstar, but Mesias runs over Morningstar. Goldberg is able to hit them with a huge jackhammer right in the middle of the ring. And then Booker, out of nowhere, just wails on Morningstar right in the middle of the ring. Because Mesias basically gets up right back up from the jackhammer and goes after him, but Mesias and Goldberg, are fighting and holding each other off, and Booker just wailing into Morningstar right in the middle of the ring, hangs him over the ropes. Morningstar has nowhere to go, so he has to tap out, and the babyfaces win. The match gets a 91. Wow, that is awesome for a War Games match. So the bout had great and good wrestling. Like I said, Team WCW defeats Deadpool in 24-34 when Booker T submitted Morningstar. Lestat gets a 67. Morningstar gets an 83. Mesias gets an 87. Vampiro gets an 86. Bill Goldberg gets an 88. Booker T gets an 86. Paul London gets a 70. And Jett gets a 64. So overall 91. And then the babyfaces basically get to celebrated as sort of the Deadpool just sort of slink off. And this gets 100 because I only rate the 2 top babyfaces, while Jett and London get to be part of 100 segment. So now it's main event time. Scott Steiner comes out, RVD comes out, Kanyon comes out, Eddy Guerrero comes out. And again, this is your typical 4-way. Everybody gets their hope spots in. Everybody gets their huge spots where it looks like they might actually win the match. Steiner gets a Steiner Incliner deep in on RVD. Kanyon hits the Kanyon Cutter, likely on Steiner. Guerrero hits the Blue Thunder Bomb early. He goes for the 3 Migos. Kanyon fights out of it. Kanyon and Eddy continue to fight. RVD hits the Van Daminator on somebody, probably Steiner, if he'll take the bump. Steiner even goes for a Frankensteiner. But let's say, Eddy turns into a powerbomb. And, it's just back and forth. But in the end, Kanyon and RVD are continuing their feud, so they're fighting on the outside. So this gives Eddy just enough time to hit the 3 Amigos, then go up top and hit the Frog Splash and get the 1, 2, 3. So, like I said, an exceptional match. Eddy Guerrero defeated Kanyon, Rob Van Dam, and Scott Steiner in 24-49 when Eddy Guerrero defeats Scott Steiner with a Frog Splash. Not our best main event, but Eddy gets an 84, Kanyon gets a 91, RVD gets a 91, Scott Steiner gets an 82. And the show ends with Eddy Guerrero celebrating, which gets a 72. Probably, it was only 4 minutes, not the end of the world. So overall, the show itself gets a 87. I'll have to double check. I think that might be our best pay-per-view. So, who gets highlights? Billy Kidman for a great performance. Let's see here. We got Jeff Jarrett for a great performance. And also, let's say Scott Steiner. Because, you guys dropped, so you get, the attaboy. Even though Jeff Jarrett, you're a little whiny about him, so are you, Scott. So let's see the aftermath of the show here. We'll check a couple of things of popularity. Then basically I've got a big announcement for, what happens after this. So, show gets fantastic reviews. Let's see here. Eddy thinks Jamie Knoble is turning into a good worker. That's nice. Okay. I mean, yeah. So these are sort of the people I expect to have morale issues. Let's look at Eddy's overness. So, Eddy Popular. Thing is, Eddy isn't like quite a top guy. He's getting there. He's really getting there. But you know, he's actually kind of hurt by that match tonight, which I find interesting. That's weird. I mean, is it possible he's hitting his ratings cap? That'd be sad if he had a pop cap. That'd be really unfortunate. Regardless, I mean, I guess, he was in a 90 match, he was in an 84 match, so maybe. And since it was a pay-per-view, interesting. Anyway, let's look at Booker still, no, who was the other guy I wanted to check out? Okay, Bill Goldberg is still just insanely over. Sean O'Hare. Sean O'Hare's really getting insanely over. Flair is still over. Who was the other guy I wanted to check out? I'm totally blanking on who it was, and I'll figure this out in just a moment. But you guys get to see my roster until then. Oh, right. AJ. Okay, so AJ's up to mid-70s. And Jeff Jarrett. Jarrett still, I mean, he's really goddamn over. And if we look at our creative real quick, we've got Bill at the top, RVD number 2, Eddy Guerrero number 3, Booker number 4, Ray Jr. number 5. Who's hot? Mesias, Kanyon, Booker, Jarrett, Goldberg. So there you go. Who's not? Well, yeah. But we can, you know, she's sort of there. Just a quick merch check. We've got Goldberg, RVD, Booker, Sean O'Hare, Chuck Palumbo, Eddy moving up quickly, Jordan Laurer, Vampiro, Mesias, Kanyon. I'm assuming Vampiro, Mesias is just general Deadpool gear. But, you know, Jeff Jarrett and her 11. I mean, again, I'm assuming that's Horseman stuff. So now, time for kind of a big announcement. So, as you guys, you know, may remember, last year, I did a prediction contest for the annual Mayhem Tournament contest. Now, what happened is basically I forgot to actually ask people to give me contact info and all that other fun stuff, so basically it sort of fell apart. And plus that was a time when I took some time off again, so yeah, regardless, I want to try doing that again. And because of the way the tournament is set up, where, you know, a whole bunch of stuff is on Nitros before Mayhem, we really have to start this in the road up to Halloween Havoc in order to get this going. So that's what I'm going to do. Is we're basically going to do a Mayhem, you know, tournament. Basically, what's what I'm looking for? A Mayhem tournament pick'em, starting today, and going through Halloween Havoc. Because once Havoc is over, well, no, actually, let me read it. Until the first show after Havoc, because, you know, you've got the couple days after Havoc until that first Nitro pops up. But anyway, regardless, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show how you're going to actually do the set up the system, set up your, you know, a pick'em and the rules and the prizes and all that other fun stuff. So it'll be just a moment. So, how you do the prediction? Well, what you do is you'll go to challenge.com/2003mayhem. You'll sign up for an account, and as part of your I'll go through how you do a prediction. But as part of your account, you know, you'll put in information for contact, either, you know, via, you know, and I'll show you how you can put in, you know, information as far as how to contact me, or how you want to be contacted, you know, email, all that other fun stuff. Or, you know, via Reddit or whatever. But anyway, here's what the bracket looks like. So if you notice right at the top, it says Vampiro, Guerrero, loser. So basically, you know, since it's for a, you know, world title shot of your choosing, obviously the world champion will not be part of it. But also, I can't, you know, give away what the world title, you know, match result at Havoc will be. Now, if you're smart and you've been following this save, you probably know what's happening in Havoc. But regardless, it's still, you know, in theory, up in the air. So to go over the bracket real quick, we've got the Vampiro Guerrero loser versus Cheery. We've got Sting versus Lestat. We've got Palumbo versus Morningstar. Ric Flair versus Dustin Rhodes. Booker versus James Storm. Kidman versus London. Mesias versus Air Paris. Jeff Hardy versus Mike Awesome. Goldberg versus Cash. Rey Jr. versus Lance Storm, and of course RVD versus Jamie Knoble. And there is a little, and then if we go farther down, we've got Shane Douglas versus Jason Jett, Sean O'Haire versus Chris Harris, Shane Helms versus Alex Wright, Jeff Jarrett versus AJ Styles, and Scott Steiner versus Gigantes. So, for all this, how you'll make a prediction is you'll go to create a prediction. You'll avoid all these fun brackets. Now, you'll choose who you want, so Tajiri, so you have Lestat. You'll pick and choose who you want. And, on and on until you have, your semifinal, your finals, and then down here, you'll choose your winner. Now, the important thing here, and this is very important, is remember, part of the thing of the Mayhem tournament is it ends in a 4-way ladder match, and then the winner grabs, I know it's, did I say it was a brief cut last year? I'll have to double check the video. Burglars, whatever it was, so whoever you choose in the finals doesn't matter as long as you choose the correct winner. Okay? And now, the other important part is it says put an email address. Now, if you don't want to be contacted via email, don't put in the correct email address. On the other hand, if you want me to somehow contact you not via email, you better put that way to contact you via in your prediction title. So either put in your Reddit username and make that known, put in a Discord name, put in something I know so I can contact you. Otherwise, if I can't, then you can't win any of the prizes. So speaking of that, prizes. Now last year I had some prizes and I didn't give any out because, like I said, the whole thing kind of became a mess. But I actually want to, go over this. So, and also show this real quick as it's just going to be Notepad to make it easy. So there will be 3 or possibly 4 prizes. So, first prize. First prize is a match at the January pay-per-view. So any match you want. There will be one match already set for the January pay-per-view that I can't change already. But regardless of that, and you'll know if you choose that match or anybody involved in that match, but any other match at the January pay-per-view involving anybody on the main roster, I'll set up that match somehow. Now, note, you don't get to choose the winner, so, if you choose something goofy, you may see a squash on pay-per-view, and I'll blame you. You'll see a wrestler brought up from developmental. Again, I'll give you the dev roster, including people who are ready to be brought up, both from men and women, and one of those people will be brought up basically, at the start of the year. All this stuff is at the start of the year because, accounting for everything. And then, and I forgot to add that. My bad. We also get to choose for me to push one person and de-push another person. Now, this does not mean if you push somebody who's currently a jobber, they'll be main eventer immediately, or if you de-push somebody, they immediately become a jobber. What this means is, for example, if you want me to de-push Ray Jr., that basically means he'll probably just be tossed back into cruiserweights. If you tell me to push James Storm, that just means he might be pushed into, sort of the mid-card or upper mid-card on his own, just for take 2 random examples. And then, finally, a dev signing. So again, you give me a list of people you want me to possibly sign. I'll tell you who's available. It's easier for you just give me a list instead of me having to tell you all the people, available in 2005 on DVDs and such. Again, no guarantee this person will ever be brought up to the main roster, but, as I do, I'll keep people, keep people going with the dev signing. Next up is second place. Title match at a Nitro. Again, you get to choose the challenger and the title they're going for. So if you want something wacky, if you want a wacky tag team over the tag title, sure, choose that. But if you want, a world title match, great, choose that. And I'll, figure out the booking. Again, that'll probably not be until about February in game time, just because of how, everything's set for booking. Again, same thing, a push and a D-push. And again, just so you know, if you choose a push and the other person chooses a D-push, the person with first place wins over the second place person. And finally, a def signing. Then finally, third place, you get to choose a match at a Nitro. Again, any match within reason. Please don't try to screw up my future pay-per-view events, but whatever, I'll book out of it if need be. And you also get a def signing. And finally, if we get more than 10 full entries that aren't total bullshit, like people who are obviously paying some sort of attention, then I will basically do the old random number generator out of all the entries, and that person will get to choose a match at a Nitro. So I think that's about it. Again, I'll obviously include the link, to the bracket in the main feed, and I'll go over the prizes also in the inscription. And again, remember, choose a tournament winner. The final is a 4-way ladder match, so scores for your finals don't count. Include how to contact you in the prediction title if it's not via email, or I'll contact you via email. But good luck for anybody who's wants to go ahead and join. I'll also be posting about this on Reddit. But regardless, I hope you enjoyed this. Give it a like, comment below on what you're liking and not liking, and subscribe to the channel for lots of TEW 2020 content, including continuation of this series, my Women's Revolution 2010, MLW 2004, and of course, WCW 1993. But that's all for now, so talk to you later, and adios. Have a good one.